This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Morgan, Content Director for Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today we're talking with Hari Nair, VP of Fleet Electrification and Sustainability, and Richard Hopatch, Director of Medium and Heavy Duty Trucks, both with Merchants Fleet. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks very much, Richard. Good to be here.
Thank you very much as well. Glad to be here.
So Merchants Fleet's doing a lot, like many fleet management services companies and solutions companies in the electrification field. So I wanted to dive right in here and get a lay of the land for what you two are facing as electrification comes into the commercial vehicle industry. We'll just kick us off here. Richard, how can fleets of all applications and sizes get started in creating a sustainability strategy for their equipment?
Yeah, very good question. So one of the most effective ways to build a sustainable fleet and reduce emissions is to focus on fleet efficiency, paying attention to unnecessary idling, reduce mileage by using software like GPS tracking, route optimizers, and replacing inefficient vehicles with fuel-efficient ones. I think that's a great start.
Right, for sure. Hari, anything to add there on those thoughts?
Yeah, Richard touches upon what actually can be done in the immediate and near future, right, in terms of idle mitigation technologies, GPS tracking, software optimization for routes, everything down to how much volume and cargo you're carrying. All of that can be optimized using software tools. But what I see in my day-to-day is also this push coming into how quickly can we migrate from gas and diesel world to a zero emissions world. That is more of a journey for medium and heavy duty trucking specifically, whereas for other classes of vehicles, it's much more attainable in the very short term. The challenge with going to ZEV vehicles is multiple in multiple different fronts, everything from vehicle availability to infrastructure to readiness to even the psychological barrier of having to change over to that mindset. But there are tools that can be deployed today, and there are strategies that can be evolved. The primary benefit of developing a plan that gets you to a zero emissions vehicle laden fleet is that in some cases for a lot of businesses, that might be a big ticket to significantly reducing your emissions impact and getting tremendously high scores on a sustainability scorecard.
Right, for sure. And I do want to dive into the electric vehicle opportunities there. One quick thing I do want to back up, because Richard, you make an important note here when you start talking about fuel efficiency and reduced idle and reduced mileage that vehicles are driving. I mean, that speaks to a larger conversation about decarbonization, right? I mean, fleets are always very focused on fuel efficiency in terms of bottom line and producing more profitability. But you can also get credit for the reduction of carbon that you're releasing into the atmosphere, right? Fuel efficiency equals carbon reduction. So to your point, staying really on top of that efficiency, continuing to drive that, which is kind of bread and butter for fleet operations here. But a little different of a mindset there because you can add it in the sustainability strategies. Hari, on the sustainability side then, you mentioned EVs, a little bit more of a journey. It's kind of a long-term outlook here. In that class 1 to 3 size vehicle application, what are the biggest opportunities for EVs?
Class 1 to 3, we see significant momentum building towards electrification. And this is primarily driven by two things, if you distill it down. One is the technology concentration when it comes to zero emissions, primarily for electrification on these vehicles, is becoming significantly mature. What I mean by that is vehicles are coming out of production lines, even though in smaller quantities, and what the market wants, they are having reasonably good range. They are capable of doing the payloads that a conventional ICE vehicle is doing on similar routes. These technological advancements gives fleets the opportunity to consider, using a certain level of electric vehicles in their fleets. If you go backwards in time, maybe 3 years to 4 years, that was not the case. Even if you had a well baked out, extremely well budgeted fully signed off by the C-suite strategy to go towards zero emissions, you probably would not be able to get your hands on the vehicles that could be a drop-in replacement for your class 1 to 3, right? The times have changed, and that gives fleets the opportunity to actually start utilizing them. The challenge, though, the flip side is vehicle availability continues to be a significant constraint, especially when it comes to electrified powertrains. We're seeing, in the class 1 space, more and more vehicles coming out of what I call as PowerPoint land and going into production and starting to roll out. But the higher you go into the class spectrum, the more difficult it is to get hold of comparable ZEV vehicle, for sure.
Right. Well, and that's not even talking about the charging infrastructure challenges, which is a whole different conversation that we won't get into at this point. But Hari, we'll stay with you here on the follow-up there. So, whether we're doing, keeping an eye on fuel efficiency right now and reducing carbon, planning for EVs and starting to add those to the fleets, what's your recommendation for how fleets can track carbon reductions on a holistic scale and equate that to ROI? Get credit for that investment and tell that story of their sustainability strategy.
Yeah, so that is a brilliant question, Jason, and there is a lot to be talked about that just one front. The fact that fleets are now thinking about tracking carbon in itself is a major monumental step forward, right, in society. What is going to enable fleets to do this are two things. One is nearly every single ZEV that is coming out. Specifically, let's talk about electrified vehicle. It's a connected vehicle. The vehicle in itself is going to broadcast out to a medium, whether it is an OEM's platform or a custom-built platform or through a tertiary software platform, all kinds of statistics and data about how the vehicle is being used, what is the watt hours per mile or miles per whatever that is needed. All of that is either logged or is available for consumption for the fleet. Similarly, on the electric side, when you deploy chargers, because chargers have to be deployed as well to operate the EVs, the chargers have become smart enough that they are also reporting out how many kilowatt hours was dispensed to a particular vehicle at which point in time for which user, right? So you have the capability now to triangulate between two data sources, and one or the other can be used to make sure that the data is actually true and valid. That level of accuracy never really existed in the conventional trucking world, right? You always had to look at third-party systems being hooked into the vehicle to provide that level of data, and there's a lot of data sanitization that need to happen. Right now, those barriers are removed. What this means is that you are now able to track how many kilowatt hours went into the battery of the truck, how many kilowatt hours was used for propulsion needs. You're able to separate that out from how many kilowatt hours was used for my facilities use, which gives you the ability to calculate how many kilowatt hours was actually used for sheer transportation purposes, right? This is kind of the basic mantra, if you will, that allows fleets to then apply for things like LCFS credits in California or other credits in other parts of the country. The fact that the vehicle is connected and the charger is connected gives fleets enormous opportunities to actually track utilization right down to watt hours per mile, and then use that to calculate their carbon reductions.
Right. And one thing you noted there, the larger sustainability picture that includes not just the equipment that's operating, but the entire company and how it's run and the energy it's using. But going back to Richard, and your point of view on the equipment side, anything that you add there or anything that you look at even from a day-to-day standpoint of how you're trying to track that carbon reduction and how that adds into the larger company story?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, Hari brings up a lot of great points, right? And just to add on to what he was saying about, greenhouse gas and sustainability, with all the data and all the telematics that are out there, fleet right sizing is going to be key, right? As a company as a whole, route optimization, idle reduction, that's some of the real big opportunities, I think, not only in class 1 to 3, but in your, your medium and your heavy as well. And I agree with Hari, there's short term and there's long term for sure, right? Depending on where it is with infrastructure and so forth. But reducing that carbon emissions for fleet operations and increasing their efficiency and their return on investment is going to be key. And the telematics, and like Hari said, a lot of vehicles are connected now, and chargers are even connected now. So what you do with that data and how you utilize that tool is going to be key for fleets going forward, no matter what size fleet.
Right, right. Well, and I like that right sizing comment too, because even in the heavy duty world, right, even going down to the edge and engine and efficiency, can you go to a 12 liter or something smaller versus a 15 liter to save some fuel? I know, the good enough for, it's going to be more efficient than the truck I'm replacing, so it's good enough. I mean, you really have to refine down to what do you actually need to get the job done, and then kind of segment out, right? We're going to see, I think, a segmentation of fleets a little more so than we have before in terms of what size equipment will go tackle what applications, and it might be a different mix than a fleet's running now, instead of just kind of maybe getting a larger truck with a larger engine displacement that's going to tackle a lot of different things. You can kind of segment out and, to your point, right size for those applications. But that takes, leveraging the data and making sure that you have all the efficiency information you need to get the job done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jason, if I may tag on to that, internally within Merchants, we have a toolkit called TotalView that is used to kind of track and manage the fleets that we host and operate for our clients. A native function within that is the ability to track the amount of carbon that a particular vehicle, whether it is gas and diesel or electric, emits. Right. So when we do ROI analysis for clients who wants to get into an electrification journey, one of the first things we look at is, which are the most offending vehicles in your fleet today, and is there a zero emissions equivalency that we can find, right? Even replacing very, very few vehicles, very few percentage points of the entire fleet with zero emissions gives you enormous rewards in the sustainability scorecard. And in some cases, I'm a firm believer that, fleets might be the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to adopting a sustainability posture, because it might take businesses, multiple years in terms, sometimes it could be even decades before they can totally revamp their supply chain or change their business process or change their chemical formulations, or how do you bake bread, change all that to reduce your carbon intensity there. But if you can replace your 16-foot box truck with the EV equivalent, you immediately get the rewards.
Right, right. Well, and to that point too, I mean, even where it falls within your equipment turn cycles, right? Like if you're on a 4 to 5 year, Class 8's often 4 to 5 year turn cycles, that's staggered throughout the fleet. Maybe this chunk you can replace a few more with some newer vehicles to get you more carbon, and then you can look out, okay, well, the trucks you bought last year, right? Maybe those are candidates for electrification because you're going to get 5 years out of them. By then your infrastructure will be in place, and you can kind of stagger that out and create the plan. But it makes a lot of sense. I see it. It makes a lot of sense when you say it, but then when you get down to it and start looking at your fleet, it gets really complicated really quickly. So very cool to hear that there's a tool that'll allow you to track that and see it, because that's the first hurdle, I feel like.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, there's the numbers can look very good, but then there's also, you take action on the numbers, right? And that's where, we see it more as a societal kind of ask. Society is asking for low carbon transportation. We hear that every day in multiple different ways. And that is also backed by technology competency, where OEMs are coming out with way more competent ZEVs. You combine the two, I think we're looking at a significant transformation in the entire transportation sector.
Right. Very cool. Well, I appreciate you both taking the time as we go through that transformation. I'm sure I'll talk to you again very soon and learn more about what fleets can do for their sustainability efforts. Thank you both for taking the time.
Thank you very much,
Jason,
for having us.
Have a good day.